Welcome, everybody. I'm going to pin myself. Oh, I guess no, I don't want to pin myself. I want a spotlight to help you guys. I think that will help. Okay. So welcome, everybody, to this free class. Now I'm going to put you on gallery so I can see all of you. I'm so happy to do this free class, and it's a topic that is so near and dear to my heart because it's been so powerful for me over the years. And I just literally got the inspiration to talk about it a little more and then offer it as a class because so many people wrote back and said that they were interested and in learning about neuroplasticity and how it can help with healing in a very direct, potent, and powerful way. So welcome, everybody. It's Sunday morning. It's 11:30 Eastern time. We are here for Rewire for Love. And I'm Robin Vogel. For those of you meeting me for the first time, you might say hi in the chat. I know there's a lot of new people here, which is really awesome. I'll take a moment and introduce myself. And I also really love seeing like where people are zooming in from. So if you feel called to say hi in the chat and where you are in the world, it can be really, really fun. So I'm just taking a look at all of you right now. And again, if you don't have your video on, I love to see you, even if you're taking a walk outside or lying down and with your eyes closed or whatever you are doing. It is great to see your video on if you can, and if not, I totally understand. All right, we've got Annapolis in the house. Hey, Erica, I didn't see your Zoomical, but I knew you were going to be here. Nice to see you. Hopkinton, Mass. We've got New Jersey. I know we're sort of from, oh, New Providence, New Jersey. That's a new one. Westboro, Mass. I know we've got people from all over, and it's really nice. That's awesome. Like I said, we had 100 people sign up for this. So you guys are the lucky ones that are here live, which is really great. I see somebody raising their hand. I'm going to wait a minute on that. And actually I need to remove that person. So give me a moment. Okay. Great. All right. Hey, Lynn, do you mind if I make you co-host? Thanks.
I can stay on for about a half hour and then I'll need to go, just so you know.
Okay, awesome. Thank you. I got you. And thank you for your patience, everybody. There was just what do you call it, when somebody comes into your room when they're not doing appropriate things. So Gaia, I just made you also a co-host. Thanks. Thank you very much. So if anybody sees anything like that again or sees it, let me know. Okay. All right. We are going to dive in. Let's begin with a centering. So I'll just invite everybody to have a breath, shoot, and gently close your eyes. It's happening again. One moment. Okay, I'm gonna lock the room. Hold on. Okay, all right. Okay, hopefully that won't happen again. This person I know. All righty, have a breath and gently close your eyes and take a moment to take 3 nice deep breaths and land here. In through the nose and out through the mouth. And as you breathe, I invite you to connect with the earth beneath you. Up here in the Northeast, we've got some cool weather, but the ground is maybe a little frozen, maybe not quite. I just want to invite you to connect with the soil, with the layers of the earth, Bring your attention all the way to the center. As you exhale, send a grounding cord through the layers of the earth, all the way to the center. Deep breath. And then we'll take a moment to expand our energy field. So just bring your awareness to the space around you, around your physical body. And expand out in all directions, front and back, side to side, above and below. And as you're expanding out, many of you have done this with me before, but for some of you, this is brand new. Just imagine this space around you, which is your energy body, expanding out, almost like blowing up a balloon, the biggest balloon you could possibly imagine, out into the infinite space in all directions. So start with the four corners of your room. And then continue expanding out into the town you're in, the city, the state or province, depending on where you are, and across the country. And then across the oceans and the seas, just continue to feel the expansion and imagine it going all the way around the earth. And even further, for those of you that feel comfortable, out into the universe. To the stars, to the moon, planets. And then breathing into that space, breathing into the spaciousness. And welcome yourself to Rewire for Love, tools to transform your neural pathways for deeper connection. Have a breath and gently open your eyes. And again, I'm Robin Vogel, and I know some of you are meeting me for the first time. So I will say hello and just briefly introduce myself by saying that I've been running a business called Come Back to Love for the last 20 years. And the intention of my work is to remove the obstacles to love, plain and simple. And that has to do with love. There are obstacles to loving yourself and all the parts of yourself. That has to do with removing the obstacles to being in partnership with somebody if you are uh, in an individual and wanting to be in relationship with others or other. And this also has to do with if you're in relationship and removing the obstacles to loving each other and the love that we share in the world. So the obstacles to allowing yourself to fully love rather than be in judgment or resentment or irritation or reaction. And all those things are very natural because we're human after all. But the work that we do to heal our hearts in order to be a more loving being is incredibly worthwhile. I think you would agree with me pretty easily on that one. So welcome back to some of you that have been through the Heal Your Heart program, which is my 6-month flagship program. I see several of you here, so yay! Shout out to all of you. And I know some of you said to me before, like, oh, this will be a great reminder of these tools because we go through them in great depth during that program. So, and the reminders again and again are so, so important because these tools are ones that you practice and continue practicing, and they have incredible impact. So one thing I want to say about my work, which brings us into the topic for today, which is rewiring the brain, or some of you might know the word neuroplasticity, um, is that as a psychotherapist, which is work I've been doing for, I don't know, maybe 25 or 30 years now, I'm not counting anymore. The doing the emotional work has been such an important part of my own journey, and also an important part of all the work I've been doing with other people. And I have learned over time that it's not the only work to do. And when I was introduced to the field of neuroplasticity and these practices back in 2021, I was still healing a very long-term struggle with fatigue. And it would ebb and flow, and it was getting better at this point in my life, 4 or 5 years ago. But it wasn't gone, and I was really frustrated. And when I got introduced to this work via a friend, I thought, well, I'm gonna try it. Like, she was working on some similar but different things, and it was COVID, and I was home, and I was like, why not? I think it was the end of 2020, actually. So I started on this path of learning what neuroplasticity is, and I'll share that in a moment. And then I started learning these specific tools, and amazing, amazing healing happened very quickly. And then as I've been using them and working with them over the years, like there's so many places that these tools can extend into. So I was focused on physical, well, can we even say anything's only physical? But I was focused on physical healing, on fatigue, which I knew had emotional, absolutely emotional components and roots in the trauma that I experienced as a child. So I knew that it wasn't just physical, and the neuroplasticity tools kind of work on all those levels. And so it's pretty magical, and it's steeped in science. And some of you are meeting me for the first time, so you certainly don't know this about me. And some of you have known me for a long time, and you may not know that I'm kind of a science nerd, even though I'm also living in many other realms of the emotional and the spiritual and the artistic and creative. I really love science. I studied it kind of intensely in college and was really into it in high school and kept going with it. And so I say that because neuroplasticity is steeped in science, and the research, like the proving of the tools, is so good for my brain, to read things that show like MRIs before the practices and MRIs after the practices, and showing new patterns in the brain opening up, or things that were flowing quiet down, so that actually the brain is being rewired, which is so cool. And it means that we can change anything we want, and we can learn new things. And yes, it gets a little bit harder to learn new things when we get older, but the learning of new things keeps the brain plastic. Neuroplastic is the language. And it is just to say it's really, really cool. So we can think of neuroplasticity as like molding clay, right? Like it might be a little bit on the harder side, so we really have to work it. And it might be not on the harder side, so we can just like remold really easily. But basically, we are able to change the pathways that have gotten established in our brain by doing a repetition of exercises. And it's really amazing. And so many, many things can be healed. And I'll say this, that when I started doing the practice and working with the tools, um, things healed that I wasn't focused on. Like I told you, I was focused on fatigue, but other things cleared up in my body. And that was pretty um, shocking, actually. But that is what happens. So while I'm thinking of it, I just want to put in the chat the name of the woman that I studied with. Her name is Annie Hopper. She did write a book called Rewire for Healing, I believe is the name of the book. And she has a program. Okay, so all of that you have now in the chat. Um, she's amazing. She's the one that I studied with, or she was like at the created the program that I studied with. I studied with the people that work with her and for her. But her book is really good and her program is awesome. All righty. So, how does this apply to my work in the world and why you're here or might be here? The way it applies is that we all have so many limiting beliefs. And I know you're not hearing this for the first time, that limiting beliefs are one of the things that keep us stuck. So I want to dive right in with giving you the opportunity to think about or become aware of a limiting belief that you have when it comes to love, whether that's loving yourself, again, whether it's considering being in relationship with somebody else, finding a partner, whether it's in a relationship or relationships that you're in. I want to invite you to take just like 20 seconds right now and write a couple down, even just one, but take a moment to write some of these things down. A very common one for people that are looking to be in relationship. And I work with a lot of people that are looking to be in relationship in my programs and classes is like, well, you can tell me, but a lot of the ones that I hear are like, there's nobody out there, or there's nobody left, or all the good ones are taken, quote unquote. I hear that a lot. Um, I mean, the list goes on, right? I'm going to pause and let you write yours down. And I would love to see some of them in the chat. Yeah, great. I'm too old. Danger. That might be a sentence like it's dangerous to fall in love. Like I think I'm not saying that's yours, Liz, but just yeah, there might be a sentence there that you're welcome to share. Yeah, what else? I know it's vulnerable to put things into the chat, so you don't have to. You also can send them to me privately. I would read them out loud, but not read your name. Age is one, looks is another. Yeah, I'm not meeting any singles that have the same interests and values, right? That's a definition or a conclusion. I don't belong. Yeah, it's a big one. Difficult for two people to be on the same page, right? Doubt, trust that I will find my perfect match, right? I'm too busy, too wounded, broken, getting better on these, not attractive enough, not rich enough, not enough money. Yeah, thank you, Jason, for naming like a lot that many people have. I'm too much. Yes, Belle. Not belonging, not accepted. Yeah, there's so many. And I'm guessing that you might put one in and feel resonant with others. And if you didn't write one into the chat, that you're kind of internally nodding at many of the ones that are in the chat. I've got some more. I attract unavailable people. I didn't put relationship in my contract this lifetime because I'm needed for service. Oh, I hear that one. Uh, being in love, you lose yourself, right? Yep, that can be yeah, that is one that I hear a lot. Like I'm afraid to lose myself, right? Or I will lose myself if I'm in relationship with someone else. So there's so many, as you can see, and this is like, right, this is a microscopic list of very long lists of limiting beliefs that we all have because, oh, our minds, our minds like to sabotage, unfortunately. Our minds like to make sense of things and unfortunately, when our minds are trying to make sense of things, the mind will go to like, well, A plus B equals C, 1 plus 1 equals 2, and it wants it to be logical. And it things are not necessarily logical, but the brain really wants that. And so it will work towards what it perceives as logic. And unfortunately, that can often show up as limiting beliefs. So, yeah, let's see if there's any more to say. Yeah, I like to proven rejected sometimes. Yeah, our brains also like to prove things, right? Our brains like to prove things, again, to make sense. And so our brains will like collect evidence uh, that proves whatever the thing is. I'm not wealthy enough. My house is not good enough. Yeah, thank you. Thank you, everybody, for stepping into some vulnerability. I really appreciate it. And just know that you're not alone. I've had all of these thoughts and more. And I know that we all have, because it's, like I said, so human to struggle with this. And so let me pause and talk about neuroplasticity. So hold on to these because we're going to work with them directly. And you will learn a tool today that you can use forever. Like, that's the most amazing thing about this work. You learn the tool. There's many tools of neuroplasticity. We'll see what we get to today. Right now, I'm planning to obviously definitely to teach one, maybe two. Um, and and they're so potent and powerful that you can then just keep using them and you'll have this tool to use forever, which is amazing, amazing, amazing. So neuroplasticity, what changes? How does the brain actually change from stuck in a thought, let's say, or a behavior, right? You can also think about a behavior pattern to something brand new. I already said that there's been a lot of research, certainly on the efficacy of these practices, and there's been MRIs that show new neural pathways opening up in the brain when a practice is done, which is, like I said, I think that's totally amazing and very cool. Um, but there are things that need to happen. I'm just putting something in the chat in order for the change to happen. And one of the things is we flush the brain with what's called a of dose. I'm putting it in the chat like this again for you. A dose, DOSE, dopamine, oxytocin, serotonin, and endorphins. You don't have to know that. Those are all the feel-good hormones. The language that I use is a dose of dose. So basically, you're giving yourself, like you take a dose of like medication, let's say, but in this place, in this work, no, we're giving ourselves a dose of those feel-good hormones. And that is one of the goals of the practices. I'm going to back up into the practice so that it gets clear what the practices are, of course. But ultimately, we're going for a dose of dose. Now, I want to back up from that to explain a little bit about how the brain works in a very simple way. The way that I learned this, the way that patterns get stuck and the effort it takes to change the pattern is the piece I want to describe right now. So imagine there's a marble on top of a mountain. Not a huge mountain, a small mountain with a lot of sand and soil, and the marble is able to go down. So we have a pattern that we do. We brush our teeth before bed. Pretty much everybody here brushes their teeth before bed, yeah? Okay, so it's a thing we learned to do when we were a child, and we do it over and over and over again. The repetition, we do it every single night. How many days has it been? A gazillion so far. With more to come. But as we establish that pattern with the repetition of doing it every day, the marble, picture the brushing the teeth as the marble, goes down a slope in the brain. On the second day we brush our teeth ever, it goes down that same slope. On the third day, it goes down that same slope. And you can imagine after thousands of days of brushing your teeth, that slope, that path that marble goes down is really indented, right? There's a strong groove there. We don't have to make any effort. We just, getting tired, go into the bathroom, brush our teeth. The groove gets reinforced, and we that pattern is very well established. Now, let's say we want to do something else, like, oh, I'm just going to keep using the dental, the dental practices because they're near and dear to my heart because I always struggle to like, okay, I've got to add floss. Now I've got to add a water pick. I just got the water pick invitation at the dentist last month. Flossing I'm used to, so I have a groove for flossing. Okay, that's a pretty good one. It's not as good as brushing my teeth, just gonna be honest, but okay, I've got a pretty good groove with like the habit of flossing. But now I'm at the dentist last month and she's like, you really should add the water pick. I'm like, okay. So now I've got to establish a new pattern in my brain for remembering to use the water pick. I've got to put effort into it. I've got to enjoy it a little bit anyway to like make it, worthwhile. But I've got to put effort and time and I've got to reestablish a new pattern. So the marble needs to now create a new groove and I've got to put some work into that. But once I put some work into it, the marble goes down and I'm establishing something new. So is that making sense so far? Just like those of you on video, just give me a little like, yeah, or like, no, I have no idea what you're talking about. Yeah, okay. Good. So, so that's the dentist example is, sort of an easy one. Thank you, Robert and Erica. If you're thinking about, I'm going to look in at your, I'm not wealthy enough, which is just the one I see so let's say the person who feels, all the people here who feel they're not wealthy enough you might be telling yourself that kind of repeatedly. Like you open up a dating app and you're like, I'm not wealthy enough. Or you see your partner in the kitchen, you're like, oh, I'm not wealthy enough. Or wherever it comes up at work, on the street, when you're having coffee and meeting new people in a cafe, your brain might tell you, I'm not wealthy enough over and over again. So what happens? That marble, right, is going down that I'm not wealthy enough groove pretty easily, right? Because you're saying it over and over again. I don't have enough money. I didn't make enough, blah, 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 right? So that pattern is pretty strong. We want to change that pattern to I have enough, let's say, right? Maybe that's the flip of I'm not wealthy enough is I have enough, or actually I have everything I need. Now we have to work to get that marble to go down another pathway to establish that. And in this case, different from the dental example, in this case, it's the same marble. It's used to going down the I'm not wealthy enough groove. We want to move it and let that same marble establish a new pattern where we're telling ourselves, I have enough, I have everything I need. And you can imagine it takes a little bit of work, right? It takes a little effort. We got to push the marble in that direction. We've got to give it a reason to go there. And we've got to keep going with it so it establishes the new groove. If you do it once, you get a little groove. But the thing with neuroplasticity actually is that you need to do it repeatedly in order to rewire the brain. Okay, so clear so far? Pretty straightforward information. Good. Okay. Now, the interesting thing, a lot of you, I'm guessing, have done maybe some work around affirmations, turning things around. I actually just gave you an example of turning something around, but that was only for the purposes of teaching you about how neuroplasticity works. Because one of the really important things in this practice um, is that it's not about a turnaround. So we're not going to do this. I'll use a different example. I'm not really attractive to I'm attractive because the truth is the brain goes, Like if you're telling yourself you're not attractive over and over and over again, just telling your brain like, yes, I am, I'm attractive. There's other parts that come in that don't believe that right away. So this is not actually a practice of turnarounds, which some of you may have done with Byron Katie and other people. All valuable work, no judgments there at all. Incredibly, incredibly valuable work, but this is different. This actually is a practice of noticing when the limiting belief shows up, catching it in the moment. This is a very important piece. So I'm going to put that in the chat. This is not an easy piece, but it's a very important piece. Catching the limiting belief when it shows up, and in response, giving yourself a dose of dose. I'm going to tell you how to do that in a moment, but I want to make sure we're clear that it's not, I'm not attractive enough to, yes, I'm really attractive. I look really great. It's not that. It's catching like yourself going, gosh, I really don't look good, and doing something else that gives you the dose of dose. Now, what is that thing that you're going to give yourself? And how are you going to give yourself a dose of dose? I want to invite you in this moment to take out another page in your journal and write down 5 things. And if you can't think of 5, I'll take 3 that bring you an incredible amount of joy, totally unrelated to what we're talking about. Let go of everything I just said. We'll come back to it in a moment and write down 5 things, 3 to 5 things that you totally love. Totally love. Like, yeah, I'm going to let you do it. The first thing that always comes to my mind is like a swirl of chocolate and vanilla swirl, that soft serve. Reminds me of joyful times in my childhood. Doesn't have to be food though. So it can be, yeah, yep. Walking, exploring, traveling, hiking, dancing, traveling. So these are great. I want you to take those hiking, dancing, traveling, and name a very specific moment when you were hiking and where you were and what you saw. I love dancing too. I want to think of a moment when I was out with a group of people and the music was amazing and I felt so joyful dancing with myself or with a partner, whatever it is in that moment. Yep, blue sky, looking up at the blue sky, charcoal sketching during a forest bathing. Oh, yeah, so that would be a moment. So you're going to capture the moment. So 3 to 5 moments that are captured. So you can see there's some flexibility in here, right? You can think of something you just love to look at. You can think of something your body loves to experience, like the dance, a dance, or forest bathing. You can think about, you can write down something you like to taste. You can write down something you like to feel on your skin. This is another thing, like I don't have anything right here, but like a soft silk something that just you feel it and you're like, oh, I love that feeling. It's so good. Or like a weighted blanket or a cozy scarf or jacket. So 3 to 5 things, salsa dance. Quality time with soul friends, family, and traveling and enjoying good food together. Yes, all good things. Now I want you to take those and make them very specific to the moment. I'd love to see some very specific. Yeah, cuddling my baby. Yes, very specific. Awesome. Nature, daydreaming of my home in the woods. Great. So Gaia, very specific visual and experience energetically of that home in the woods. Sushi, whale watch, and seeing the whale come out of the water. Yes. Enigma, return to innocence, sunrise on Star Island. Yep. Sunset on Star Island. Perfect. The first time I walked on fire. Yes, exactly. Like you want to capture the moment. And what I want you to do, intimate dance with a partner. Yes. Gym exercise. Cool. Okay, so you can tell Cuddling my pillow, imagining it's someone I love. Yes. Step outside and take a deep breath. Yeah. Hot fudge sundae with my grandma on red leather stool at fork and knife. Yes, yes, yes. Exactly. Now you get, now you're all getting it. Tasting a piece of food that makes my eyes roll on the back of my head. Yes. Awesome. Yeah, and I encourage you as you're writing some down that if there's any on this list that you really love, that you take them for yourself and put them on your list. Because part of the home play for this call is to make, I don't have my index cards to show you, but to get some index cards and, or you can do sticky paper. But you want to have, ultimately, the home play is to have uh, somewhere between 5 and 15 index cards with these. And what these are doses of dose, each one of them, because each one of them gives you that good feeling. Now, I'm going to explain how to use them in the practice, and we want to have them identified. So basically, the home play, homework, right? But I like to call it home play. The home play is to have a stack of index cards or stickies, but index cards, 5 to 15 of them that you always have accessible. So once you write them down, yes, can you change them over time? Of course. But once you have them written down, you got 5 to 15 index cards with you. You keep them in your back pocket, you keep them in your purse, you keep them on your desk, on your dresser, you keep them wherever uh, wherever you are, so that you can always take one out and take a look and use it in the practice. All right, I'm going to pause for a moment because I know you're kind of still writing those down. Okay, good. Just taking a look at the screens, make sure we're doing well here. All righty. So thank you, Mary. Um, all right. So the practice itself. The first piece that I mentioned is to notice when a limiting belief shows up. This is actually pretty challenging. It takes a lot of awareness. It takes a lot of willingness to be vulnerable and open with yourself. The only one that knows about these limiting beliefs is you. And so you're going to catch them for yourself. But it takes a lot. And the way that I suggest you do this, because it can be so challenging, is to set aside time where you just tell yourself, okay, in the next hour, I'm going to catch these limiting beliefs when they show up. You could say, this coming Saturday afternoon, I'm going to take the whole afternoon and I'm going to turn the dial up on my awareness and I'm going to practice catching these limiting beliefs. You could say, I'm going to take the week. You don't have to do that. You can also say, okay, I'm just going to pay attention more and they'll show up. I like to have like a specific time because it actually is a neuroplasticity practice, to be honest, because you're actually doing something new. And when you do something new like that, you're going to be able to do more of it. You'll have more awareness. So I really suggest picking a time in a day, and here it is Sunday at 12:15 Eastern. You can do it this afternoon if you want. So you're going to catch, you're going to turn up the dial on your awareness of the limiting beliefs and when they show up. You're going to notice when they show up, and then you're going to pause. You're probably going to take a breath. You're probably going to pause. You might notice some other thoughts in there. Can put those aside. The E is endorphins. Thanks for asking, Mary. In that moment of catching the limiting belief, you're going to give yourself a dose of dose. What does that do? It stops the marble from going down that pathway and it creates a new pathway of joy, of energy, of happiness. What happens when we have dopamine, oxytocin, serotonin, and endorphins? We're happy, we're relaxed. Our parasympathetic nervous system can be engaged. Thank you for putting that in, Lynn. And we feel good. We feel really good. What happens when we tell ourselves, I don't have enough money, I'm not good enough, I'm not pretty enough, I'm not blah, 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 blah. It's very heavy. And the energy around that is heavy and low and not joyful at all, right? So the dose of dose is completely the opposite. And that's what's going to rewire the brain and stop the brain from going down that groove that is the limiting belief. And that's actually how the kind of remolding and rewiring of the brain happens because it likes the dose of dose. And so it's going to create a new pathway instead of going down that old pathway. And it's really interesting how it works because next thing you know, you're like, oh my God, I haven't had that thought in like, I don't know how long. And it just dissipates. And we know that when we're thinking positively and when we're focused on things that we really want in our lives, that we're much more, there's much more opportunity and possibility, and we have capacity to create um, what we are, what we want in our lives. Dahlia, I think that you just came in, and so I'm going to invite you to listen, and I'm going to tell you right now that answer to that question, how to give yourself a dose of dose. So, again, you're turning your awareness up, you're catching the thought, you're taking a pause, and then you're going to take out one of those index cards or just remember the ones that, remember one. And in that moment, you are going to go deeply into that incredible experience. And it can sound like you can say it out loud. You can just think it to yourself. I'm just going to pull one up. We've got this hot fudge sundae. So, okay, I'm thinking to myself, like, ugh, I'm never going to meet anybody. I just don't know what's going on. Oh, catching that thought. Immediately switch my brain. Oh my gosh, I'm sitting with my grandmother on this red leather couch. I can almost smell the leather of the couch. Um, the red leather stool, sorry, at Fork and Knife, I guess that's a place. And this hot fudge sundae is in front of me, and it's so delicious. And then the chocolate smell is amazing. And I'm so happy to be here with my grandmother. I feel so warm and I feel so loved by her. And I'm going to take the spoon in my hand, which feels cold, and I'm going to take that hot fudge with the vanilla ice cream and put it into my mouth. And oh my gosh, the taste, the flavors, you kind of get my point. So your instant happiness, yes. So you're going to turn the dial up on what you see and what you're experiencing and what you're tasting and what you're hearing. Not all of those will be appropriate for your dose of dose, but many of them will, right? Maybe some of them, if there's no taste, then you're not going to use that. So I would love to unmute somebody, one of you brave souls who would like to give us an example of what I just gave you, one of your index cards, doses of dose. Who would like to share? Um, just raise your hand at the bottom of your screen. You can click on raise hand and I'll unmute you, or you'll unmute yourself. I would love to hear somebody give an example, just so it's not just me. I gave you a good one.
I'd like to share, Robin. Mine's going to be a little along the lines of yours, though.
Okay.
Um,
Thanks,
uh,
Steve.
I would say maybe I'm being recluse and not being sociable enough, and then I'm
Okay, so
thinking of
tell us the limiting belief again. Just say it again so it's really clear.
my limiting belief would be that I'm not being sociable enough.
Okay, I'm
To
not
meet
being sociable
somebody.
enough.
Yeah, sure. I'm just being a recluse, just in general. Yeah.
Okay, and there's obviously judgment there about that.
Right,
Yeah.
right.
Okay.
My empowerment belief would be, um, I mean, the party I threw New Year's Eve, um, and I had like 10 friends come out and we danced all night, and it was a happy experience. I met some new people. I was very social. Um, I wasn't recluse at all.
Okay, give me an example of something that's not the opposite of I'm the judgment of being reclusive. Because remember, it doesn't that's it's good, it's fine to have an example that shows the opposite.
Mhm.
But one of the really important points of neuroplasticity is that it doesn't have to be the opposite. So what's another thing I just want to give an example of something
Hmm.
not related that might be on your index cards, and maybe you don't have your list yet, of something. Well, you had like a forest bathing example, right?
Yeah, yes, yes.
Okay. So give us like two sentences on the amazingness of the forest bathing. Close your eyes and tell us.
Oh, wow. Um, just being out in nature,
Yeah.
um, listening to the sounds, listening to the birds chirp. Um,
Yes.
our instructor for the day, his every word he said was just so calming,
Mm. Hmm.
relaxing. It was almost a whisper, but it wasn't. I mean, he was talking regular, but it just the way I
Nice.
perceived it in that time, everything slowed down, and
Perfect.
it was perfect. Yeah, and when I did my charcoal rubbing, it was very, I don't know, it was just very euphoric. It was very, made
Yeah.
me happy. Yes.
Great. That's a great example. You captured it. So that experience of the forest bathing, we're going to have two more examples from Guy and Robert, but that experience of the forest bathing gave you and also me as I was listening, as soon as you said the birds, I was like, oh yeah. So now I've got a dose of dose. You've got a dose of dose running through your body with the four hormones, and that will counter physiologically, neurobiologically in the brain the negative belief I'm a recluse. Oh, I'm going to let that thought go. Going to focus on this forest bathing experience.
Right.
And that,
With the forest bathing thought, I totally forgot about being recluse already.
yeah, exactly.
Oh my God.
Exactly.
I'm thinking of the birds chirping and being
Yeah.
out in the forest and looking at the trees and
Yeah. All right. Thank you, Stephen. That's awesome. Nice to see you here. Gaia. And then Robert.
Right. Um,
Yeah, there you go.
so sometimes I have doubt about, relationships or even the things I've been calling in about my home in the woods and everything. Like, is it ever going to happen or will it happen or whatever? So um, I have a long list of doses, and one of them is really just daydreaming about that and like
Mm,
just envisioning it and the feeling of it, the smell of the woods, the gardening, the peace and quiet, and also the ability to share it with others. Just like, yeah. And I've been putting so much energy to it that I know it's coming. So,
yeah,
but sometimes I doubt, like, how and will it come when I'm thinking it's coming? And so it's like, no,
that's a great.
it's definitely coming.
Yeah,
So,
that's a great another those that's another example of like catching that limiting belief, even like going into, well, how is it going to happen? Okay, let me just go to the dose of dose, right?
right.
Yeah,
Yeah, this is what I know that I know, you know.
right. Yeah.
So, and even
Awesome.
it could be just even just let's just take 5 minutes to just meditate. Just like take a couple deep breaths and just
Oh my
pause, take,
goodness. Yeah.
shift.
Hmm.
So, yeah, thank you.
Yeah, thanks for sharing. And I wanted to say, yeah, taking 5 minutes is awesome. And I also want to say to everybody that the dose of dose can be 30 seconds. That's what's so amazing about this practice is that it's fast. Catch, give yourself the dose of dose, move on. Sit down for 5 minutes and meditate and like luxuriate in the energy. Yes, of course. Like that's going to only help and strengthen the new pathway, but it doesn't have to be. So just want to say that. Robert, go ahead and keep your hand raised so I can still see you on the screen. Thanks.
Okay,
There
yeah,
you
something just came up right now, and I figured, this is, and I'm feeling a little bit raw about it. And
go. Thank you.
It's kind and it's you know, and first of all, I like I appreciate you creating this container so people can be vulnerable. Safety is important.
Yeah.
Thank you for that. So it's something that came up just right now is that saying that I'm not sociably cheerful. I have a hard time, you know, being cheerful in a public situation, to become vulnerable. I have a hard time building friendships and relationships. And there's a part of me, there's a stoic part of me. I'm part of a Buddhist religion, which is kind of stoic in that which I really don't care to build, a lot of relationships, but I want good relationships.
Hmm.
Because I'm afraid people will take advantage of my openness. So this is what I'm dealing with now. So I'm just being really raw and honest right now about
Yeah, thank you.
something that I'm concerned about right now. So, and I would like to do something about that.
Yeah. So in this frame for today, because there's a couple
Okay.
of places we
Yes.
could take that, right? I mean, there's different realms we could work on that in. And as you know, or as some of you know, this is one of the realms. Like, I'll just say really quickly, in the four gates of come back to love, we're in gate 2, which is beyond the mind. We're working in the neuroplasticity realm. So we're going to
Yes.
keep it in that. Of course, we could look at it from the emotional, we could look at it from a soul journey's perspective. But right now, staying in the realm that we're in, I would invite you to take what you just said and write down what those limiting beliefs are. Or maybe you can say one or two in this moment, or one. But there were a couple things you said in there that were kind of conclusions, definitions, maybe
Yes.
judgments, right? So
Hmm.
you're going to write those down just so you know what they are and what the usual ones are that come up for you. And then when they come up, this is a very weird practice. I just want to say that. I didn't say that yet. This is like not the usual way that we have been taught to go about healing. And
Hmm.
it's so, so powerful to do it this way.
I agree. Yeah.
Yeah. So you're gonna catch those thoughts whenever those thoughts come up. And then you're gonna go to your list, which might be on index cards soon. You're gonna go
Hmm.
to that list and you're gonna pull one of them out. And I don't know if did you put one in the chat? Tell me one of the ones that's on your list of your dose list.
Um, I put in the one that said about eating a piece of food that makes your eyes roll back into your
Oh
head.
yeah, that's right.
Because
Okay,
I ate some food and I could not believe that I could experience such sensations through my mouth.
there we
It
go.
just it was very transformative for me. So that one is like just feeling that gustation just explode into the universe and stuff. So,
Awesome.
just like the person eating the chocolate sundae, very
Yeah,
similar situation. So,
yes. Yeah,
um,
so that's
mhm,
that's what you're going to do. You're going to notice when any of those thoughts come up about being a
yeah,
Buddhist, being stoic, and the different things in there. And then you're going to catch the thought and you're going to go to the dose of dose. Maybe it's this incredible like food that you ate, or it's something else that you experienced during
hmm,
the day, or something you just, it doesn't even have to be, I haven't talked about this and I won't get into it too much today. There's so much more, and I'll share in a moment. Um, but it can also be like in the fantasy world, like you can make up that you're like in a movie or riding on the back of a dragon or like anything that would be like so amazing. Like that's the energy that you want to
mm.
bring in. Like some of you that maybe have done this with me before have heard me say I do a lot of like flying around on a dragon's back because it's
I
really
like
fun.
that one
Yeah.
because in that one you're kind of invoking a totem, and I like
Yes.
invoking totems, so that's kind of
Okay.
cool actually.
Yeah. Yeah. It doesn't have to be in the real world. It can definitely be
Ah, I like that. Yeah.
fantasy, as long as it gives you the flush in your body of dopamine, oxytocin, serotonin, and endorphins.
Right. So then the limiting belief here, the one that I wrote down here is I have a hard time building friendships. That's the limiting belief.
Yes. Yep. Yes. Yes.
Mm-hmm.
So as soon as
Okay.
you think about that, again, we're in this realm. There's other realms we could work on that
Yeah.
in.
Okay.
But
That
in
sounds
this
good.
realm, you tell that to yourself and you're like, oh, catch that thought, immediately go to the dose of dose. and then let it go. Go about your day. Comes up again, catch it, go to the dose of dose. Can be the same thing, can be a different dose. Go about your day. The next day it comes up again, catch it. You get the point?
Yes, I do.
Cool.
All right.
Awesome.
Thank you.
Yeah, you're welcome. It brings me to, and I know we're just at the end of our time, to emphasize that changing our minds, changing our thoughts, changing where we put our energy is what changes our life. So we all know this, but I'll say it because we can't say it enough, and it's important to say it. When we feel gratitude and we bestow gratitude upon other people and to ourselves, we create those things in a greater way in our lives. What we focus on is where our energy goes, and that's what creates our life. And so this practice is actually so deep and so profound. And there are other neuroplasticity practices. And I'll invite you to come to a class I'm doing in 10 days or so. I'm doing a $47 class. It's a 2-day class, actually, from 11 to 6 and 11 to 3. It's a Thursday and a Friday. I'll send out information. I might even be able to just put yeah, I'm so excited. This work is so exciting for me that I'm just so happy to be teaching it. And there's a link to that class. It's a 2-day class, 11 to 6 Thursday, January 16th, and 11 to 3 on the 17th, where we're going to learn a whole lot more about rewiring these patterns. If you come to that, that will be awesome. Yes, there'll be recordings of this. There'll be recordings of that one as well. I always send recordings out so people can, listen to it, whether they can come live or not. You're welcome. But just this tool is so, so powerful, so potent. So I would love to hear, if you have another couple of minutes, in the chat what you're taking with you. And I also can hang around for any questions that anybody has. But let's first have what you're taking with you. Good to see you, Belle. Glad you're able to be here. And Stephen.
Yeah. Hi, Robin. Yeah. Hey, Robin. It's so nice to see you again. I'm glad
Yeah,
I
you
made it.
too. You too.
Um,
Thanks
I
for
just
coming.
the dose to dose thing. What I took out of it is more or less when I'm feeling negative, not only transfer it to a positive, but also add in some sensory, the five
Yes.
senses with it too. That seemed to be, yeah,
Yes, powerful.
that-
Thank you for saying
yeah,
it in those words.
powerful. Yeah.
Yes.
Well, thank you for
Yeah,
hosting.
you are
So,
so welcome. Thanks for being here, committing to
yeah.
your healing.
Oh my, yes, of course. That's a 365 24/7 job. So yeah,
Yes, yes.
yeah. Much better now though. My psyche's a little better. I'm back to work. I'm a little less disabled. So
Good.
yeah,
I'm just going
I'm
to pause you for a moment so people can put some things in the chat, but thank you. It's
happy
really
New
good
Year.
to
It's
see
nice to
you.
see
Happy
you.
New Year.
I'll catch
Yeah.
you later.
Yeah. Challenging limiting beliefs. Thank you very much. Yeah, you're welcome. And anything else that anybody wants to put in the chat that they're taking with them. Yeah, I did this before. I'm so glad for the reminder. Yes, feel good. We need to fool our own brains sometimes. It does not do our best interest sometimes. Yes, absolutely. Very good summary, Erica. Thank you for that. So yeah, so thank you so much for being here. And again, if you want to dive more deeply into these practices, we're going to go into them. And there's actually so many ways to rework the stories we tell ourselves, and that's a more expansive and a deeper practice that we're going to go into in the 2-day class and other tools as well. But they really work not only to rewire the brain, but Gaia kind of alluded to, it also extends into the realm of manifesting and actualizing what you want to have in your life because you're spending time telling your brain the new story, the new energy, the new good, feel good feelings, and you start to live into it, which is pretty cool, pretty wild. So you'll see, like, as you learn more of the tools and as you practice them, you'll see how they expand actually into other realms of reprogramming, rewiring, and creating what you want in your life. So it's been very exciting for me. And I'm just thrilled. I'm so happy to have been able to spend this time with you. So for those of you that need to go, I totally understand. I'm 5 minutes over. And like I said, I can hang out for about 10 more minutes if anybody has any questions. But in the meantime, for those of you that are ready to go, I wish you a blessed day. You'll receive the recording, and maybe I'll see you in about 10 days or so for the next piece. Lots of love, everybody. Happy New Year.